was a humid summer evening, the kind where you could feel electricity crackling in the air. The sky had turned an eerie shade of greenish-gray as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Inside the grand hall of St. Mary's Church, laughter and music filled the room, but for Sarah Bennett, it felt suffocating. She stood near the bar, clutching her glass of sparkling water tightly, avoiding eye contact with anyone who might recognize her. Her gaze involuntarily wandered across the room to him, Michael, her ex-husband. He sat at a corner table, nursing what looked like his third whiskey of the night. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, and there was that familiar glint in his eyes, the one she used to dread. It was their best friend Jake's wedding, and fate had cruelly thrown them together again after months of separation. Sarah's heart clenched as memories flooded back. The shouting matches late into the night, Michael stumbling home drunk, slurring nonsense about things that made no sense. And then, finally, the day she walked out on him, leaving behind years of resentment and unspoken apologies. They hadn't spoken since, not even when they signed the divorce papers. Yet here they were, under the same roof, pretending not to notice each other. As if sensing her thoughts, Michael glanced up. Their eyes met briefly before Sarah quickly looked away. But something in his expression unsettled her, a mix of sadness and anger, perhaps regret. She didn't want to think about it. Not tonight. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a deafening clap of thunder shook the building. Guests gasped as rain began pelting against the windows, turning into a torrential downpour within seconds. A few moments later, someone shouted, "Tornado warning! Everyone take cover!" Panic erupted. People scrambled toward the basement stairs. But Sarah hesitated. She'd come alone in a cab, and now, with the storm raging outside, getting another ride home seemed impossible. As she stood frozen by the entrance, weighing her options, a voice broke through the chaos. "Need a lift?" She turned to see Michael standing there, keys dangling from his hand. His face was unreadable, but his tone carried a hint of desperation masked as politeness. For a second she considered refusing, but pride warred with practicality. Finally she nodded curtly. "Fine." The drive started in silence, the tension between them thick enough to cut with a knife. Outside, the storm intensified, trees swaying violently under the force of the wind. Lightning illuminated the darkened streets, casting fleeting shadows inside the car. Neither spoke until they reached her apartment complex. "Thanks," Sarah muttered stiffly as she opened the door, eager to escape the suffocating proximity. Before stepping out, she paused and glanced back at him. "Goodbye, Michael." He stared at her, pain flashing across his features. "You really hate me that much, don't you?" he said quietly, almost to himself. Without answering, she slammed the door shut and hurried inside. By the time she reached her balcony, the storm had escalated further. Tornado sirens wailed in the distance and debris spiraled wildly in the air. Through the chaos, she saw Michael peel away in his car, tires screeching as he sped off recklessly. Hours later, news reports confirmed the worst. A massive tornado had torn through the outskirts of town, destroying everything in its path. Among the casualties was Michael Bennett. His car had been found overturned, crushed beyond recognition. Sarah watched the coverage numbly, unable to process the finality of it all. Relief mingled with guilt gnawed at her insides. Months passed. Life moved on. Sarah eventually remarried, a kind man named Daniel who adored her and treated her like royalty. Friends often commented how lucky she was to have escaped her toxic marriage just in time. Even Sarah herself sometimes wondered if Michael's death wasn't some cosmic justice for all the pain he'd caused her. But then came the letter. One ordinary afternoon, while sorting through old belongings, Sarah stumbled upon an envelope addressed to her in unfamiliar handwriting. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with typed text. "Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I know you'll never forgive me, and maybe I don't deserve forgiveness. Please know, it wasn't the storm that killed me. That night, I drove straight into the tornado intentionally. I couldn't live without you anymore, knowing I'd lost you forever. I hope someday you find happiness, even if it's without me." Her hands trembled as she dropped the letter. Tears blurred her vision as the truth sank in. Michael hadn't died accidentally. He'd taken his own life because of her rejection. Guilt crashed over her like a tidal wave, drowning her in remorse. And yet, amidst the sorrow, a chilling realization crept in. Hadn't she secretly wished for his disappearance? Hadn't part of her rejoiced at his death, believing it freed her completely? Now, burdened by the weight of his confession, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that his ghost lingered somewhere close, watching her every move. From that day forward, strange occurrences plagued her life. Objects would go missing only to reappear in bizarre places. Whispers echoed in empty rooms. Once she swore she saw Michael's reflection in the mirror behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. Daniel tried to reassure her, dismissing it as stress or grief. But deep down, Sarah knew better. Michael's sacrifice and his haunting presence was a reminder of the love and pain they'd shared. And though she had chosen a new life, the past refused to let her go. In the end, Sarah realized the true cost of walking away. Some decisions leave scars too deep to heal,